Fans of all kinds of all sports, welcome back to Max on Boxing. I'm Max Kellerman. As usual, a lot going on in the fight game. Let's get right to the headlines. We begin with this. Joe Joyce, the juggernaut, stops Carlos Takam in the 6th round. After the fight, Joyce says he wants the winner of Joshua Usyk. Joe Joyce nicknamed the juggernaut because he just keeps coming. He usually starts slow. Most pressure fighters do. He's big, he's lumbering, he's basic, but he's got a lot of heart. He's huge, and he just keeps coming. He stops Takam. It was a premature stoppage. But you understand why this may happen with Joe Joyce. If his opponent is taking punches, he is so big and strong that the ref will be looking very closely because they gotta be figuring if the other guy's incapacitated even for a moment, and he takes a couple of big shots from a guy this size, it could really be bad. I don't anticipate that'll be the last premature stoppage at a pretty high level in Joe Joyce's career. Next headline. On again, off again, Canelo-Caleb Plant showdown for the undisputed title. Mike Coppinger has been covering this story all along. You can read him on ESPN.com, of course. Apparently, they were close to a deal, and then Canelo's side came in with several demands that Caleb Plant's side felt they just couldn't meet. I do think, unlike most Canelo opponents, Caleb Plant comes in with some real leverage here because it is pretty obvious Canelo wants to be undisputed champion. Yes, Caleb Plant is dealing with maybe a potential 8-figure payday here. And who wouldn't want to make $10 million when you've never come close, especially to making that kind of purse in the past? So it's obviously Canelo has leverage, but if Canelo wants to be undisputed champ and soon, he's got to fight Caleb Plant. Next headline, WBO orders Terence Crawford Shawn Porter fight. Crawford last fought in November when he stopped Kell Brook in the 4th round. Kell Brook didn't look like he had a lot left in that fight. Shawn Porter hasn't fought since last August when he beat Sebastian Formella by decision. Now, Shawn Porter's most recent fight against top opposition, of course, came against Errol Spence, and I believe that fight, as time goes on, will be seen truly as a welterweight classic. That was simply a great, great fight. Spence won by the narrowest of margins on my card. The knockdown in the fight was the difference, but Porter bounced right back up. Shawn Porter is live against any fighter in the world, obviously against Errol Spence. Yes, I believe Crawford too. I would love to see that fight happen. And by the way, as the PBC is ducking Terence Crawford, does it escape anyone's attention that the one guy who you'd figure maybe he'll step up and fight Crawford would be Shawn Porter? That is a fight fans fighter right there. Next headline. Ryan Garcia comeback. Likely against Joseph Diaz Jr. This was also reported by our very own Mike Coppinger. Ryan Garcia was originally supposed to fight Javier Fortuna back on July 9th, but withdrew so he could focus on his mental health. Jojo Diaz stepped in, moved up to 135, and beat Fortuna by unanimous decision. I love Jojo Diaz as a fighter. He would have been a contender in any era, a complete fighter, a southpaw who applies pressure, throws a lot of punches, can stay in the pocket, hit, not get hit. Not a big puncher, not the worst puncher ever either, but not a big knockout puncher, maybe the one hole in his game. Maybe that's why I say he'd have been a contender in any era. I did not say champion. And it does look like Ryan Garcia has extra special athletic talent that, especially with the left hook, the speed and the power on it, that Jojo doesn't have. But I'll tell you what, for a guy who was really getting his head together and taking a step back from the ring to come back against a guy like Jojo Garcia, my hat would be off to Jojo Diaz. My hat would be off to Ryan Garcia. I would love to see that fight. Next headline. Edgar Berlanga, ESPN Showcase. He is the showcase on the Fury Wilder 3 card. Dan Raphael of Boxing Scene was the first to report this. So Berlanga would be the final fight on the ESPN broadcast before the pay-per-view starts. Obviously, that idea is that the widest, the broadest possible audience could be exposed to Berlanga. Berlanga last fought Damon Nicholson where for the first time in his career, he was 16-0 with 16 first-round knockouts. A guy made it out of the first round, and in fact, Vincent made it all the way to the final bell. Can Berlanga, now that he stepped up the opposition a little, get back to that knockout streak? Edgar, we're not asking for them all to be in the first round, but let's see if he can restart a knockout streak at least. Berlanga is a serious puncher and a real prospect, and of course, we all look forward to his continued progress as he steps up the competition, and that'll do it for headlines. Coming up, Brian Castano, who last week made headlines for his draw against Jermell Charlo, will be talking to me. This is Max on Boxing. Talk to you today because while all draws are controversial with the fans and the media, because they're usually close fights, and I thought this was a close fight, I, like most people, felt you won, that you beat Jermell Charlo. Close, great fight, terrific performances from both of you. How do you feel about the fight now?
Thank you so much for this space. I feel that I win this fight. Charlo's a great champ, but me too. I want the rematch for the forvet because they stole the glory for me. I'm very sad about that. I need the rematch.
Brian, you now have had a draw with Erislandy Lara. I mean, Canelo barely beat Lara. That fight could have gone either way. You have a draw with Jermell Charlo that, again, very close, but people felt you, but to win with the judges.
More pressure. My plan is pressure, no, man. All time, all round. Pressure, smart pressure. I work in this night. This night is pressure. It's more clear my plan. I think so. He's a great champion, a great fighter, but me connecting the great punches, more pressure, more smart. This
when
fight.
you talk about smart pressure, I agree. I thought Charlo would win because I didn't appreciate how clever, how cute, we say, I think is your best asset. Can you talk about your style? Describe your style.
My style is aggressive. You know. My all fight is pressure, aggressive. This is my style. My hair is my instinct. My instinct, no, it's more strong, no.
Yeah.
I need to go to the fight.
I appreciate you trying to do this interview in English. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate you doing it. And I can imagine. I
need to learn. I learn it.
Clearly.
It's very important for me. Thank you. Sorry for my English.
You notice I'm not conducting it in any other language. I'm not learning Spanish, and I work in boxing, so probably I should. Brian, I want to ask you about Argentinian fighters, because this goes back the history of boxing from Luis Firpo to Oscar Bonavena to every Argentine fighter. They always say awkward. If they're good, they say they're awkward. And I've heard that about you. He's awkward. How do you feel about that? How would you describe your style?
No, I am no awkward. Me no. The people say, watch me the last fight. I am more smart. I know how box. No, you know, me move. I need the smart in the fight. My every fight is different opponent. No, is the people watch me the last fight. This is my style.
I agree. In fact, your style in certain ways reminds me of Julio Cesar Chavez. The way you time guys, you apply pressure, sometimes off the back foot at times, you force your opponent to lead, and then you counter even as you're applying pressure. I think it's very high-level stuff. Speaking of high-level stuff, there's a lot of talk about Tim Tszyu being your next fight as a mandatory. How do you feel about fighting Tim Tszyu, the great Costa Tszyu's son, and an excellent fighter?
Tim Tszyu need take I don't know. Tim Tszyu is a good fighter, but I need other fights. But more better fight. No, Tim Tszyu is a good fighter. I respect your career, your role, but he need the
more
The
experience.
fight.
Are you saying you don't think Tim Tszyu's experienced enough?
I think so. He need more experience, more. He need five or other opponents.
But Brian,
he need this.
If he's inexperienced and he's a big star in Australia, isn't it good for you to fight a big star who's not experienced enough? You sound like you don't want to fight Tim Tszyu. Do you want that fight or no?
I need fight here. No, Australia. Why not coming here? I don't know. I need fight here. I need the people watch me. The people know me here in USA. He's my work is here in USA.
Before I get to a possible rematch with Charlo, because Jermell has said he wants the rematch, I want to ask you about fighting Errol Spence in the amateurs. Can you tell me, because Erislandy Lara is a draw, Jermell Charlo's a draw, could have been a win. You know, you have good. Teixeira was a win. They're talking Tim Tszyu. They're talking a rematch with Charlo. But you fought Errol Spence in the amateurs. You were a decorated amateur. How did that fight go?
I win this fight. The Errol Spence in the pre-Pan American in Venezuela. I win. This guy is good fighter, but to count in the fight.
You knocked him down twice.
No knockdown, but the pressure, aggressive, being Errol Spence.
Standing 8 count.
Nah, exactly. But I need the rematch. I need I want the jury rematch for the 4 belt. Because I repeat, because I need the glory. I need the unification to my people. For me, I need it. I'm very sad about that.
So now let's talk about Jermell. He said, is that what you're referring to? Because Jermell said he doesn't want to get a draw or even a win where people think he lost. He wants to do it again. And he pointed out that in his previous rematch, he looked much better in the second fight. Do you think would you like to fight Jermell Charlo again? Do you think he can fight better than he fought you the first time?
I think so. The second fight, I need it. Maybe he too. I need the rematch. Maybe the next fight is more big fight for me. I think so. I win this fight. I needed the rematch for the glory, the undisputed Latino champion, the first. I hungry. The fight, he is very strong. Me too. And the second fight, I be better. I be better. I think so. But it's a strong fight. The people needed this fight.
Well, Brian, thank you for joining me today. I'd love to see you fight Tim Tszyu. I'd love to see a rematch with Jermell Charlo. The first fight was excellent. If the second fight is better, boxing fans will be in for a treat. Thanks, champ. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for my English.
No, thank you for trying. Thanks for doing the interview in English. As I said, I'm not doing it in Spanish, and in boxing, really, I should know Spanish.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Next, brought to you by Chase. Now time for Max Me Anything. Your questions, my answers. One round, ring that bell. There it is. Ron asks, Max, I believe there's a strong likelihood that the Spence-Pacquiao fight will play out in the same way as the Spence-Garcia. As against Garcia, Spence will dominate the much smaller Pacquiao with his jab, take few risks, and cruise to an easy decision. What say you? I don't think there's going to be anything easy about it, and I don't think it's going to be safe. I think Pacquiao's aggression is going to lead to a great fight in which I think Spence stops Pacquiao, but in a great fight. We'll see. Jay asks, I love that matchup. Eddie Hearn recently said that Canelo wants to fight Beterbiev and Bivol. Do you see Canelo challenging and beating these opponents at 175, or do they fight at a catchweight? Been reading Mike Coppinger here at ESPN on ESPN.com. You know that, among other things, these last-minute demands from Canelo's camp that apparently scrapped the Caleb Plant fight because Al Heyman rejected them probably takes Benavidez and also Jermall Charlo out of the mix, meaning Canelo now looks north to Bivol and Beterbiev. Those are the most challenging fights, I believe, for Canelo. I think Bivol may have the best chance to beat him. I think Beterbiev and Canelo make an all-time great fight that I'd love to see. And yes, Canelo has chances to win both fights. Robert wants to know, if Canelo is King Kong, who is Godzilla? These Godzilla questions. Well, if Canelo's King Kong, then we have to come up with another monster who, according to the movie, that was evenly matched, right? Triple G. Right? At Triple G, it has got to be Canelo's Godzilla. You'd have to think. They fought twice. It was real close and competitive. That's probably Canelo's chief rival as a pro. I'll say Triple G. Jamal asks, any overall impressions of pro fighters fighting in the Olympics? Good for the sport? I don't like it. Like, if you want to see, world supremacy, who's the best at boxing? The United States is way up there, and we already have that tournament of sorts. It's not always a tournament guys can pick and choose. It's called the pros. The pros tell you who the very best in the world are. The Olympics, generally for boxing, traditionally have been for the amateurs, for the younger kids. And I prefer that. I mean, not against kids, these guys making money, especially during COVID, when guys were training for the Olympics and it got postponed so they turned pro. I get it. My personal preference is let the kids fight in the amateurs. Matthew asks, how good was Ezzard Charles? Ezzard Charles was so great. The kids, no one even knows this anymore. He was heavyweight champion for a while, eventually lost the title to Jersey Joe Walcott, who was knocked out by Rocky Marciano. But Charles, as a light heavyweight where he never got a title shot, had about a 7 or 8 year run where he was virtually unbeatable. He beat Archie Moore multiple times, including by knockout. He beat heavyweights. He beat a who's who of boxing, one of the 10 greatest pound-for-pound fighters who ever lived. JB asks, do you think Keith Thurman can make a successful return? I do. Keith Thurman was a very good fighter when he was active, and I expect if he comes back and wants it and stays active, he will go back to being a very good fighter. He's still in his physical prime. All right, time's up. That'll do it for Max Me Anything. Tweet me your questions to @MaxKellerman, and maybe your question will be answered on the show. A little more Max on Boxing after the break.
Domino's is testing